Alright, I made this video to strengthen and give courage to all those who are in the process of converting to Judaism, or those who converted already and are Jewish. It's something that we all need once in a while. We all need a boost. Sometimes the process is hard and long, and we need to reconnect to the original belief and desire and inspiration that you have when you are starting the process or investigating, or well, even once you're Jewish, because we know the communities, unfortunately the Jewish communities, are not always supportive, which is terrible. Yes, I wanted to share a few ideas of the greatness of being a convert, and how powerful you are and how unique you are, and how every Jew should praise you. And unfortunately, I meet sometimes people who convert and they're shy to say that they convert to Judaism. Every non-Jew who converts to Judaism should be proud and not be afraid to tell his story. And as we're going to see some sources, it's obvious that it's amazing, and one should, although a Jew is not allowed to remind him about it or mention that he's a ger, just out of respect, because some people had a very difficult time making a transition and abandoning their previous life or lifestyle. So it's still very praiseworthy to I think, to say that you're a convert and to share your story and inspire Jews about what you did. So, and as many actually say in Kabbalah, only original Jewish soul end up converting. Meaning, a convert was always a Jew. He just had his spark of his Jewish soul hidden in the world, like many other things and sparks of holiness. We're not going to discuss Kabbalah now, but this spark reignites and needs to come to back to its root, and those are the Jews who convert for the right reason. But obviously, it doesn't mean that a non-Jew has to. Is not meant to be a Jew. It means that a non-Jew has its own mission. A Jew has its mission. Like a woman has to be a woman, a man has to be a man. Everybody has its own place, and everybody can be praised and for who they are. Okay, so I want to read a few sources so that you see how great our sages, our rabbis, as early as the time of the Talmud, were praiseworthy. I mean, actually, since Moshe Rabbeinu, I mean, every Jew is a convert, starting with Abraham. So the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvot, in the book of Mitzvot, on the third mitzvah, meaning the mitzvah to love God, he says like that our sages say that this commandment also includes calling upon all people to serve God and have faith in Him. For just as when you love someone, you will praise and extol Him and call upon others to love Him, so by analogy, when you truly love God through grasping His truth, you will undoubtedly call others to the true knowledge which you have already grasped. Here it's speaking more about the mission of the Jewish people to spread the knowledge of God. This is something that people are not aware, is that as Jews, and you now as who is going to convert, you have to know that one of the reasons you become Jewish and you convert is to be a light into the nation, and to push people and to become Noachites, meaning that all non-Jews, all of mankind, should love and praise God and recognize God in the world. As the Sifrei says, and you shall love the Lord God, you should make him beloved of mankind, as Abraham your father did, as it says, and the souls that he made in Haran, which speaks about converts, according to most opinion. That is to say, just as Abraham, for the sake of his love for the Lord, for Hashem, for God, as Scripture testifies, Abraham, who loved me, summoned mankind to believe by the power of his conception of God and the greatness of his love for him, so too you must love him to the extent that you will call mankind on him. So that's the greatness of being Jewish and of someone who wants to convert, and he has to understand you are becoming someone like another Abraham who is here to fix the original sin of Adam HaRishon or choice of Adam HaRishon, and you're here to change the world. When you convert, you have to understand, I am converting to change the world, to make a difference, to make the world a better place, to become an inspiration to all the non-Jews. Okay, it's not just an individual thing. You don't convert just for yourself. The only reason the Jews converted at Mount Sinai is because they understand there was a very specific, unique mission, which is that the Jews were supposed to be the teachers of humanity and teach the world that there is a God and that everybody has to come close to him and that everybody should live in harmony. So there's no greater mission than that, to bring God to the people. Now the Rambam also in Hilchos Melachim says like that, along the same lines. Moshe was commanded by the Almighty to compel all the inhabitants of the world to accept the commandments given to Noah's descendant. Anyone who accepts upon himself the fulfillment of these 7 commandments and is precise in their observance is considered one of the pious among the Gentiles and will merit a share in the world to come, just like the Jews. This applies only when he accepts them and fulfills them, because the Holy One, blessed be He, commanded them in the Torah and informed us through Moshe, our teacher, that Noah's descendants had been commanded to fulfill them previously. So the Jews' responsibility is to push the world to become righteous and loved in front of God and merit to have a share in the world to come, which means to have paradise, the way it's in the secular world, paradise, life after death, which is everybody can really reach, but someone who wants to reach that level needs to prepare himself for that level. So the Jews are here to prepare humanity as much as they can to become ready for the next world, the next step. Okay, so here you go again. Another thing about inspiring the world. There is a Tosfos Yom Tov on Pirkei Avot, and it says Rabbi Akiva intended to strengthen the ways of all Gentiles, as we, the Jewish people, were commanded by Moshe, our teacher, according to the words of the Rambam. And if we are commanded to compel them, how much more so should it be done through verbal persuasion to draw their hearts to follow the will of their Creator and the desire of their rock. So not only we have to, as Jews, and you who is converting to be Jewish, if you are, then you're becoming now a teacher, or not only just a role model, but we're supposed to actually bring verbal persuasion to the world, meaning when you become Jewish, you have now the responsibility to speak to the people. Through here it says verbal persuasion, to tell them, there is a God and there is a structure, He's guiding the world, and God loves us and He wants to have a relationship with us. Now, the Radak also on Yeshaya, who says, I, God, will set you, the Jews, for covenant to the people, for light to the nations. For on account of the Jewish people, the Gentiles will observe the 7 commandments and go on the good path. Actually, I want to show you the Radak inside, lighting to the nation. He says, to labris am, to be a covenant to the nation. So he says two things. He says, "Ha'echad," where is it? Vikyum kol am ve'am ki ba'avocha v'zkayem kol ha'olam. Meaning, it's amazing. He's saying because through you, the world is going to be fulfilled. Through you, the Jews, through your learning of Torah and keeping on commandments, the mitzvot, and becoming a better people and following God's ways, you will enable the people to connect to God, and that's why you're here. It's that's the idea of Am Segula, that we are a treasured people. What's a treasured people? It's a Segula is also not just treasure. It's almost like a remedy, or like a cure, or like a potion, a special potion, and that you use in order to elevate and fix. And we are the instruments, so to speak, to elevate all of mankind if we do it the right way. Okay, so V'ahu HaTorah shetitze lahem mitzion. Okay, so the light to be a light into the nations is our Torah. We know that the Torah, if we learn Torah the right way, and we taught it the right way, the people will be amazed. One of the problems that we have today is that we're not inspired by our own Torah and mitzvot. A lot of Jews are, say, slave to their own religion. They have the habit of doing things without understanding what they're doing, because they do it since they are little children. And yes, it's challenging to always stay inspired, but there's a responsibility as Jews, and that's what we have to teach our children, that you have to be excited, happy, in love, spiritual, all that, and you have to live a Judaism that is exciting, and you have to find the rabbis, the true rabbis, who really live a life of true connection, inspiration, spirituality, meaning, and when they do something, they know why they do it. So that's how you have to teach Judaism to your children. If you do it, then you become, when people ask you, oh, why do you wear a kippah, why do you dress with a suit, why do you eat kosher, why do you keep Passover, all those things, whenever a non-Jew listens to that, or any Jew, anybody who listens to that has to say, wow, that's amazing, I'm inspired, I want to learn more about God, about this amazing way of life that refines people to the highest level and brings them closer to God. So he says, "B'Yisrael yiyu kiyum ha'umos al shnei panim," that Israel is going to be able to elevate the nations in two ways. Ha'echad sheyeh shalom ba'avuram bechol hagoyim. That obviously is speaking about the end of time, but this is something that we're supposed to do already now. The end of time is when Moshe has to do it because we didn't do it, right? So the first one is that we should bring peace between all the nations, that we should create a society of unity. And actually, there's another person, another holy tzaddik who wrote about this, and that's the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim, who says at the end of his introduction, he says, when he says, speaking about the lechet bidrachav, halicha bidrachav, that we should walk in the ways of God. So he says, what's the goal of that statement, that we should walk in God's way? So he says, Dehainu kol haholech el tachlis ha'tava ha'mitis, Dehainu shetoladta chizuk haTorah v'sikun achvas hamedinos. That we have to act in a way that leads to the goal of true benefaction and true good, which is the path that leads to the goal. The path. I skipped a line. Namely, the one that engenders a strengthening of the Torah and an enhancement of international unity. That's the way Rabbi Zweig, he should be healthy for a long time. He says like that, international unity, achvas medinos, the connection between all the nations. Here is translated as civic fraternity. That's really what we Jews are meant to bring. That's what it says in Yeshayahu, in the prophet Isaiah, in chapter 42, verse 6. And there's more. It's exciting. Okay. Yes. So when God offered the Torah, this is the Balaturim, in chapter 61 of Isaiah, that it says that we are supposed to be, you will be called priest of God. That when the Messiah was come, Moshiach is going to come, Mamlechet Kohanim, we're going to be a priest of God. Technically, the Jews are supposed to be teachers of humanity, and that's what the priest is. One of the responsibilities of a priest is to teach. So it says, although the people forfeited this privilege because of their sins, this verse foretells that there will be a time when they will merit fulfillment of that promise. That the Jews technically should have been teaching already all of humanity. This is how you work on your character trait. This is how you work on your soul and get spiritual, all that, all the Kabbalah stuff, all the spiritual stuff, all the transcendental meditation and all the energy chi stuff that exists everywhere. All that is supposed to be something that we Jews should have been able to teach already a long time ago. So unfortunately, we were not always on the level to be able to do it. Okay, and then here comes the Sforno, also on the same verse about being in this is in Exodus, Shemos 19:6. You will be for me a kingdom of priests and the holy nations. The Sforno says, through this they will be my people, my beloved people. Am Segula, like I said before, and recognized as a kingdom of priests by undertaking to teach all of mankind to call upon the name of God and to serve Him with one purpose, as it says, and you priests of God shall call out. And as it is said, from Zion, the Torah will go forth to the whole world. The Chasam Sofer on Choshen Mishpat, number 85, says that we are commanded to guide Gentiles in the service of God. And then again, in Sefer Hasidim, it says in number 360, a Gentile who is enthusiastic in observing the 7 Noachide commandments should be honored more than a Jew who doesn't occupy himself with learning Torah. So we see how a non-Jew who wants to be close to God and is learning how to connect to God through the 7 laws of Noachide's laws. And it is very important for every non-Jew who is learning Torah that he learns meaning he understands that God gave 7 commandments to humanity. And the Noachides, meaning the children of Noach, which are all the non-Jews today, almost, have to know that those are commandments given by God to them, to you, and therefore you have to learn them, and that's how you can be even greater than a Jew who doesn't observe the Torah. So that's very amazing. Number 1124 from Sefer Hasidim says, if one sees a Gentile committing a sin and can object, then one should, for God sent Yonah to Nineveh to influence them to abandon their sins. So we have even Jewish prophets who went to the non-Jewish nations, say, careful, God is angry, you are messing up. And as Jews, that's our responsibility. We have to make a stand. It's not just like, oh, Jewish, I'm busy just with the Jews. No, I'm Jewish and I care about the world. This is my world. And as a Jew, I become representative of God, messenger of God, to tell the world, whoa, there's immorality here. There's something going wrong. We have to not be afraid to protest and to make rallies, peaceful rallies, and to protest for what's wrong in our world, in our society. And that's this responsibility. Okay, so that was for that. By the way, a book that I recommend for non-Jews who wants to learn about or a Jew who wants to learn about how to help the world, to go to perfect the world. It's a very good book. It has a lot of insight into it about what's our mission as Jews and what we have to teach the world and what's our responsibility. I want to read you also from Rabbi Ari Kaplan, the Handbook of Jewish Thoughts. Very good book. A lot to learn from that. So he brings many sources. He says about what's the responsibility of the Jews. All Jews are therefore responsible for one another. Even the responsibility for individual obligations does not rest upon the individual alone, but upon the entire community. Meaning, it's not just as me, I'm a Jew, so I have this. No, as a group, as a community, we're supposed to be responsible for each other, but for the world too. Each Jew's moral responsibility extends beyond the Jewish people to the entire human race, as moral corruption in any place affects the entire world. Right? That's a very important thing to know. Okay, that's that thing, and I wanted to share. One last thing. This is a book from Rabbeinu Bachia, Kada Kemach. He was a very big rabbi, and he basically brings different concepts in his book, and here he speaks about Gerim, the converts. I kind of veer off the topic at the beginning because I said I'm going to strengthen the non-Jew who is converting, or the converts, Jewish converts. But really, it's to strengthen really what you're signing for, so to speak, who you have become, what's your obligation as a Jew, and this is the greatest position they can have. You come in a position of power, so to speak, to influence the world. But let's now discuss a bit non-Jews who are converting and Gerim. You have to know, you are so holy. It says in the Zohar and Kabbalah that the souls of converts are the holiest soul. They come from the unification of tzaddikim, of the very holy people who are bringing those souls down, and even we understand exactly how it works. We understand that each one of us has a soul, and the soul of a convert is very precious to God. In the Zohar, it speaks about Batya, the daughter of Paro. You understand what it's talking? Daughter of Paro. Paro represented the snake, who represented the evil inclination and the Satan. So his daughter, who was a non-Jew, he was Egyptian, Batya, she converted to Judaism, and she saved Moses. She brought Moshiach, and you have to understand that it says in the Zohar, in Gan Eden, she's on the highest level. She's on the highest level of paradise of Olam Haba, with other very holy Jewish women who were born Jewish. Also, we know, or sometimes we hear about, say that the converts, the famous statement that people say to attack the Jews, that converts are like thorns for the Jews. There are many different explanations about that. But what is clear has nothing to do with that we don't love converts. Because 36 places in the Torah where we mentions that we have to love converts even more than a Jew, so we have to respect them more and give them more attention. So here he says there are scholars who explain that the sage's statement proselyte are as bad for Israel, what I mentioned before, was not intended to slight the proselyte themselves, but rather to rebuke Israel. God sees that the proselytes have left their families and their native land and have come to cleave to the divine glory. Lech Lecha, just like Abraham. It's one of the hardest processes. You have to kind of live a whole life and change yourself. It's very difficult, and in most cases, and you're doing something incredible. Thus, by their act of devotion, they further incriminate the Israelites when the latter failed to worship God with perfect hearts. Because you coming out on your own, you were not influenced by anyone, you decide to do a process that is difficult, and nobody forced you to do that, because we don't force people to convert. Thus we find the Midrash, Reish Lakish said, nowadays processes are more distinguished than the Israelites who stood at Mount Sinai. Right? Because the Jews, they heard the thunder, they saw God, they saw the miracle coming out of Egypt, and you're here in 2018 in the secular world, full of pleasures and desires and temptation, and you could just live a life of relaxing and just enjoy yourself, live for yourself. Who cares about the rest of the world? I'm happy, and as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, I'm good. But no, you decide on your own, and you look for God, and you find God, and you make changes with your life, and you become an entirely different type of human being who decides to change the world and live for the world and serve the world and be a messenger of God. But right, and that's it's amazing. He says, and the great and awesome wonders that's the Jews. So the non-Jews, the Ger, saw none of these things, and still they came under stress and pain to take refuge under the wings of the divine glory. So this is pretty amazing what it says here. All right. So this is a non-Jew is going to have a tremendous reward if he converts. Tremendous reward. Now it says also a statement at the end, because I'll read you that because not so many people actually say it and hold by it. But the Rami Bachya was a very famous rabbi, accepted by a lot of people. So he says, by right, non-Jews who become proselytes in these times of the exile and subjugation are entitled to the great reward this time for Israel, and should be classed among the highly distinguished ones of Israel. Highly distinguished ones of Israel. However, there will be no reward for those nations that will convert in the days of Moshiach. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be accepted, but it means that, well, some hold they're not going to be accepted, but some hold that we're not going to push someone who wants to be close to God, but you won't have the reward of being a light into the nation. That's obvious. You cannot have the salary of the president, right, if you work as a lawyer. The retirement plan is different. Not because you're bad, because that's just the position that you took during your lifetime. The more what is clear is that the more you're good as a human being, the more you'll be rewarded. But the more effort you have, the more responsibility you take, the greater reward. And that's exactly the difference between Jews and non-Jews. A Jew just took more responsibility, and you're free to take that responsibility anytime you want. But it comes as a price, a lot of effort, a lot of work, and that's fine. Everybody does whatever he wants and has his own position, and will be loved for whatever he does in his own position and unique mission in life. Now he says, he finishes, from this we learn that only those who converted when we were impoverished will dwell among us. Nevertheless, the people of all nations are destined, my French, are destined to become proselyte in the world to come. People of all nations. That is, they will voluntarily convert, as it says, for then will I turn to the peoples a pure language, and they may all call upon the name of God to serve him with one consent. That's in Zephaniah 3, chapter 3, verse 9. So, to all the non-Jews who are learning about Judaism, it's amazing what you're doing. We know that famous statement that the non-Jew who learns Torah to get closer to God, meaning with the right intention, obviously. He's learning Torah to get close to God, understand God's ways. He learned the 7 commandments from that Noah were given, and he tried to fulfill them. He's looked on a higher level than a Jew. And if he converts, if he wants to convert, if you feel you feel connected to the Jewish people, you feel that that's where your mission is, then you should convert, and you're one of the greatest Jews that ever existed, just like Avraham. And you should be praised, and you should celebrate. I want you to, if you already converted, right? First of all, you have to celebrate if you want to become Jewish, because it's just like, who wants to go change the world? Who wants to be a hero? Yeah. Well, if you're on that journey, then you should celebrate that you're on that journey and not give up. And number 2, once you converted and you're a Jew, and first of all, no, the Rambam says that if you become Jewish, and all of a sudden later on, in a few years later, you say, no, I don't want to be Jewish anymore, I convert to something else. You can't. I mean, you can try, but you have the Jewish soul, and you're Jewish forever, no matter what, just like any other Jews. You're exactly the same, and you have therefore to understand that you have a soul that is huge, and you have to celebrate being Jewish. Every Shabbat you should celebrate that you are a convert, a Jewish convert. Be proud of it, and thank God every day that you made that choice, and share with other people your story. People who obviously respect you and care and understand. I know there are not too many, but there's a lot of ignorant people, unfortunately. There's a lot of ignorant religious Jews. So you got to become friends of the non-ignorant Jews, and the Jews who respect every convert and love every non-Jew and loves the world, love the creation of the world. Ohev kol habriot. You have to love every creation of the world. So I hope that gave you a little bit of strength, chizuk, and you are not going to give up on your desire to convert if that's what you feel is the right thing for you, and you do it for the right reason. And by the way, I'm sure you know already, that's why sometimes Jews push non-Jews away a lot, because if you try to convert for the wrong reason, it's going to be bad for you. Like, you convert just because you love someone, or you convert just because you want to be part of a community, or it just feels good, or you want to be spiritual. All those are wrong reasons. The only reason to convert is because there's a God, and God has a mission for the world, and you want to choose to be a servant of God, meaning a messenger. You want to become Jewish and take the Jewish responsibility of living a life of role modeling for the rest of the world, and take upon yourself many, many responsibilities, and do the 613 commandments because you love God, because this is the truth, then you're good. So I encourage all of you to find the right path, and if you're non-Jew, Mazel Tov, and if you're a Jew, Mazel Tov also. In both cases, where the key is to learn to work together. And that's one thing I want to mention that I heard from Radinovich. It's one of the reasons the Jews, the Orthodox Jews, create a separation, and God and the rabbis, more the rabbis than God, because the rabbis saw the danger because of assimilation. There were certain laws that were put to create a little barrier, a separation, a clear separation between Jews and non-Jews, like intermarriage, or eating kosher, or wine, things that as a non-Jew or as a secular person I would think this is disgusting. This is oh wow, we can't eat the same food. We're like what's wrong? What? So the idea is it's not to make to push you away. On the contrary, the whole idea is to define really who we are, and yes, to work together, but stay who you are. And that's the danger. If we mingle, that's why so many laws intermingle the species by trees, by animals, and same thing by human beings. You're gonna lose the identity of who you are and your mission and your uniqueness. So yes, I love you, non-Jew, but I'm not gonna marry you. Yes, I love you, but I'm a Jew. I have a kosher diet. Yes, I love you, but I can drink wine with you because that's one leads to do things that always, I mean, being drunk can lead to things where we're gonna end up not working in harmony. We're and so same thing as husband and wife, and that's when Kabbalah it says Jews and non-Jews are supposed to be like husband and wife. We work together, but the husband says the husband and the wife says the wife. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. Otherwise, then who is the man, who is the woman? It's the end of the couple and the harmony of the world the way God intended it. So I love you all. May you all be proud of who you are and who you are becoming, and may we all live together in peace and harmony.